Daniel watched from a distance, quiet pride in his eyes. He saw the light returning to her, the strength she didn't know she had. Their evenings became comfortable routine. They'd share quiet dinners, sometimes talking about the foundation, sometimes about books or music, carefully avoiding the deep wounds beneath the surface. Shayla found herself drawn to the garden. One section was filled with roses, dozens of varieties in every shade. They were well cared for, but some bushes were overgrown, needing pruning. One afternoon she found garden shears and began to work on the roses, carefully trimming dead branches to make way for new growth. It was delicate, focused work. She lost track of time, her mind quiet, her hands moving with purpose. She was so absorbed she didn't hear the maids approaching. She caught the end of their conversation, voices hushed. "So sad. He hasn't touched them since she died. They were her favorite." "I know. He used to spend hours out here with her." Mrs. Lawson loved her roses. Shayla froze, shears still in hand. His wife's roses. She felt sudden guilt, as if trespassing on sacred ground. She was about to put the shears away when she heard Miss Ruby's voice, firm and clear. "Let her be. The roses need care, and so does she." The maids fell silent and moved on. Shayla stayed there, kneeling in the dirt, a single perfect white rosebud in front of her. She thought of the dust-covered room, of the sadness Daniel tried to hide. He'd built this fortress, this foundation, all to manage pain so deep it had frozen part of his life in time. She continued her work, but now it felt different. It wasn't just distraction. It was an act of care, of quiet understanding. She was tending to his wife's roses, bringing life back to something neglected in the wake of grief. That evening, when Daniel came home, he found her sitting on a bench in the rose garden, the setting sun casting a golden glow around her. The bushes were neatly trimmed, the ground cleared of weeds. He stopped, his eyes taking in the scene. "They look beautiful, Shayla," he said, his voice low. "They just needed a little help," she replied softly. He sat on the bench, leaving a respectable distance between them. "So do we all sometimes." They sat in silence as the sky deepened to indigo. It was in these quiet moments that Shayla felt the strongest connection to him. He didn't try to fill the silence with empty words. He simply sat with her, sharing the weight. They were two lonely souls brought together by a storm, finding strange, fragile comfort in the garden of a woman they had both, in their own ways, lost. As Shayla's confidence grew, so did her role at the foundation. Daniel began to trust her with more responsibility, not just in the sewing room, but in managing day-to-day operations. She had natural talent for organization and deep empathy for the women. The foundation thrived under her quiet care. Her life found a new, steady rhythm. Days filled with purpose. Evenings with Daniel's quiet companionship. The mansion no longer felt like a stranger's house. It felt like a haven. But questions lingered. Daniel never spoke of his wife or son, and she never dared ask. One rainy Saturday, Daniel was called away for an urgent meeting. Shayla was alone in the vast house, rain drumming softly against the windows. She was looking for a book in the library when she noticed a small, carved wooden box on a higher shelf. It seemed out of place. Curiosity got the better of her. She stood on a stool and took it down. It was unlocked. Inside, nestled among old papers, was a small leather photo album. Her heart beat faster. She felt like she was intruding, but she couldn't stop. She opened the album. The first pages showed a smiling, happy couple. Daniel, younger and carefree, and a beautiful woman who must have been Michelle. Then pictures of a small boy with Daniel's serious eyes and Michelle's joyful smile. Jordan. They looked so happy, so full of life. It was hard to imagine all that joy extinguished in a single moment. She turned the page and her breath caught. It was a picture of her father. He was on a construction site, blueprint in hand, a proud smile on his face. And standing next to him, looking at him with pure admiration, was a much younger Daniel Lawson. Shayla's mind raced. Daniel had known her father. Not just known him, but worked with him. She flipped through the rest of the album. More pictures. Daniel and her father at dinner, laughing. Daniel at her family's home, sitting at their table. Picture of her father handing Daniel some kind of award. He hadn't just been an employee. He'd been a mentee, a protege, almost a son. Why had he never told her? She put the album back, her hands trembling. The kind man who'd saved her wasn't a stranger at all. He was a piece of her past. She heard a car in the driveway. Daniel was home. She quickly put the box back and walked out of the library just as he came in, shaking rain from his coat. "Everything all right?" he asked, seeing a look on her face. Shayla looked at him, really looked at him, seeing not just the billionaire who'd rescued her, but the young man who'd once looked up to her father. "Daniel," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "we need to talk." The air in the library was thick with the smell of old books and rain. Shayla stood by the fireplace, her hands clasped tightly, her heart a frantic drum. Daniel looked at her with weary resignation, as if this conversation had been inevitable. "You knew my father," Shayla said, her voice quiet but firm. It wasn't a question. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. He walked to the decanter and poured himself whiskey. He didn't offer her any. "Yes, Shayla," he said, his back still to her. "I knew him. He was more than just someone you knew," she pressed. "He was your mentor, wasn't he? I saw the pictures." He turned around, his eyes dark with memories. "He was the best man I ever knew. He gave me my first chance when no one else would. He taught me everything about business, about integrity." "Then why didn't you tell me?" she asked, hurt evident. "All this time you let me believe you were a stranger." "Because it was complicated," he said, voice laced with old pain. "And because I failed him." Shayla frowned. "Failed him? What are you talking about?" "Your father's company didn't just fail," Daniel explained, gaze distant. "It was destroyed, deliberately, from the inside." He told her the story. A brilliant but ruthless employee her father had hired. An ambitious man named Marcus. Marcus had been her father's protege before Daniel, but his ambition was poisoned with greed. Daniel and her father had brought Marcus into a major deal, trusting him with finances. "Your father trusted him completely," Daniel said bitterly. "We both did, but Marcus was siphoning money, creating fake invoices, laundering funds through shell companies. He bled the project dry. By the time they discovered the fraud, it was too late. The company was bankrupt. Investors pulled out. Her father lost everything." "Why wasn't he arrested?" Shayla whispered. "Your father wouldn't allow it," Daniel said sadly. "He was a proud man. He couldn't bear the public shame. He chose to absorb the loss, telling everyone it was bad investments. He made me promise never to speak of it. The stress broke him. He was never the same." Tears welled in Shayla's eyes. Her father hadn't failed. He'd been betrayed, and the man who betrayed him was the same man who'd thrown her into the street. "After your father passed," Daniel continued softly, "I tried to find you. I wanted to honor my promise to make sure you were taken care of. I owed him that? What happened? I found out you'd married Marcus, he said, the name like ash in his mouth. I couldn't believe it. I sent letters. I tried to call. But Marcus told me you wanted nothing to do with your father's past. He said you'd moved on. I believed him. I respected what I thought were your wishes, and I backed away. The pieces clicked into place, forming a horrifying picture. Marcus hadn't just destroyed her father. He'd isolated her, cutting her off from the one person who might have helped, who could have told her the truth. He'd built his new life on the ruins of her old one, and he'd made sure she'd never find her way back. She looked at Daniel, her heart aching for him, for her father, for the years they'd all lost. He lied, Shayla said, her voice shaking with cold, rising anger. He lied about everything. A few days later, the past came knocking. Literally, Shayla was arranging flowers in the entryway when the intercom buzzed. It was the security guard. "Ma'am, there's a man here asking to see you. Says his name is Marcus." Shayla's blood ran cold. The vase slipped from her hands, shattering on marble. Water and white roses scattered at her feet. "Marcus, here?" Miss Ruby rushed in at the crash. "Child, are you all right?" She saw Shayla's face and knew. "Tell them he's not welcome," she said fiercely to the intercom. But Daniel's calm voice came from the top of the stairs. "It's all right, Miss Ruby. Let him in." Shayla looked up, eyes wide with panic. "No, Daniel, you don't understand." "I do," he said, his face hard and unreadable as he descended. "Let him come. It's time this ended." Marcus walked into the mansion as if he belonged, though his clothes were rumpled and his face drawn with desperation. He looked around at the opulent surroundings, envy flickering in his eyes. His gaze landed on Shayla, and he tried to summon a charming smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Shayla," he said, voice smooth. "I've been looking everywhere for you. I was worried." Shayla stared, speechless. The audacity was breathtaking. "What do you want, Marcus?" Daniel asked, voice dangerously quiet. He stood slightly in front of Shayla, a protective barrier. Marcus's gaze shifted to Daniel, expression hardening into a sneer. "I came to rescue my wife from this predator." Daniel didn't flinch. "Your wife? You threw her out, remember?" "I made a mistake," Marcus said, turning to Shayla, voice dripping with fake sincerity. "I was angry. I wasn't thinking straight. Vanessa meant nothing." "It's always been you, Shayla. Can't you see he's manipulating you?" Marcus said, pointing a shaking finger at Daniel. "This man is not who you think he is. Ask him about your father. Ask him how a young man with no money suddenly became a billionaire right after your father's company went bankrupt. He's the one who destroyed him, Shayla. He used your father and threw him away. Now he's trying to do the same to you, playing the hero." The lie was so bold it almost sounded true. For a terrifying second, Shayla felt a seed of doubt. She looked at Daniel, whose face remained impassive. Marcus saw the flicker of uncertainty and pressed his advantage. "He's been lying to you. He ruined our family, and now he's trying to steal you from me. He's obsessed with your father's legacy and sees you as the final piece. You're just a trophy to him." "That's enough," Daniel said, voice low and cold as steel. "Is it?" Marcus shot back, wild look in his eyes. "Tell her the truth, Lawson. Tell her about the contract. Tell her how you built your empire on my father-in-law's grave." The words hung in the air, venomous and sharp. Shayla felt dizzy. She looked from Marcus's desperate, accusing face to Daniel's cold, controlled anger. One of them was a monster. She just had to figure out which one. The silence was deafening, broken only by Marcus's heavy breathing. Shayla's mind was a whirlwind. She looked at Daniel, searching his face for an answer. He met her gaze, expression softening for just a moment. Then he turned back to Marcus. "You want to talk about the past? Let's talk." Daniel walked calmly to a table and picked up a thick manila folder. He'd been prepared. He opened it and laid several documents on the table. Old, yellowed bank statements, transfer records, copies of contracts. "You're right about one thing," Daniel said, voice even and steady. "There was a contract. One I signed with Mr. Thompson to help save his company. But there were other documents, too. Documents you forged." He slid a paper across. It was a bank transfer authorization signed with a crude imitation of her father's signature. "You created fake vendor accounts," Daniel continued, voice a low, damning indictment. "You authorized payments for services never rendered, materials never delivered. You funneled millions directly into your own offshore accounts." Marcus's face went pale. "That's a lie. You framed me." "Did I?" Daniel said, voice dangerously soft. "Did I force you to meet with corrupt council members, squeezing your father-in-law? Did I force you to take their bribes, to look the other way while they stalled his permits and drove up his costs?" He slid another document across the table, a ledger of cash payments, each marked with a single initial M. "You didn't just steal from him, Marcus," Daniel said, voice cold and steady. "You worked both sides. You betrayed a man who trusted you like a son." The truth snapped into focus for Shayla. The late nights, the secret trips, the defensiveness, not stress guilt. "He found out, didn't he?" she whispered. Marcus broke. "It was an accident. He confronted me. We argued. He had a heart attack." But Shayla saw it clearly now. Her father hadn't died of illness. He died of betrayal. "Get out," Shayla said, voice trembling but strong. Marcus pleaded. "I did it for us." She laughed bitterly. "This life? Built on my father's grave. You did it for yourself." Her hand pointed firmly to the door. For a moment he hesitated, then saw the survivor in her eyes and fled, leaving behind the wreckage of his lies. Shayla stood among the truth, poisoned yet liberating. Daniel appeared beside her. "I shouldn't have let him in," he whispered. "I needed to hear it from him," Shayla said, resolve hardening. "He has to pay. For my father. For his name." Together they reviewed evidence. Forged documents, bank records, even a secret recording of Marcus confessing. "It's enough to put him away," Daniel said. Shayla nodded. "But the truth must be seen by everyone." The Lawson Foundation Gala was weeks away. Atlanta's elite would gather her father's friends, now witnesses to justice. "I'm ready," she said, eyes ablaze. Daniel smiled, admiration in his gaze. On gala night, Shayla stood in the shadows, elegant and fierce, Daniel at her side. Marcus, oblivious, fell into the trap led to the alcove where Daniel's hidden agent. Every second of waiting stretched like an eternity. Tonight it would end. Justice would be served. The lights dimmed and the crowd hushed as Daniel stepped onto the stage. Screens flickered to life, showing Marcus and Mr. Patterson. Marcus, drunk on ego, bragged loudly about betraying Shayla's father, stealing his money, and marrying his daughter only to discard her. The ballroom gasped. Whispers filled the air. Shayla stepped forward, head held high. The crowd parted as she approached the stage, eyes locked on Marcus. His smirk vanished, replaced by fear. Champagne glass shattering, he froze. Shayla took the microphone, voice strong and unwavering. "My name is Shayla Thompson. For years you believed my father failed. Tonight you see the truth." She recounted his lies, the pain he caused, and the life he tried to steal from her, standing firm despite tears. The grand doors burst open. 2 officers entered, handcuffing Marcus. His eyes begged, but Shayla felt only quiet peace. The crowd erupted in applause. In the aftermath, the stolen money was recovered, but Shayla wanted none for herself. With Daniel's support, she opened Hope's Haven, a sanctuary in West End for women and children, a place of learning, laughter, and resilience. The bags they made became symbols of strength. Pain remained, but it had been transformed into hope, purpose, and a legacy. Her storm had finally passed, and the future was hers. Their relationship grew slowly, gently, like the roses in his garden. It was built on quiet evenings with shared cups of tea, comfortable silences, and mutual respect. Daniel visited Hope's Haven not as a billionaire, but as himself, the children climbing into his lap for stories, the women treating him with warm respect. They saw the quiet admiration he held for Shayla. One afternoon, on a playground bench, he took her hand. "Your father would be proud," he said softly. Shayla smiled, looking at the children, the laughter, the workshop humming. "Not riches, but purpose," she replied. "You found it." "You built it," he said. 2 years later, sunlight bathed the courtyard. Children played, laughter echoing. Shayla, serene and confident, knelt before a frightened girl clutching a doll. "After every storm, the sun comes out. And we are strong enough to stand until it does," she whispered, hugging her. Daniel appeared, hand extended. Shayla took it. Together they watched the children play, hand in hand. Leaning on his shoulder, Shayla felt peace. The past was part of her story, but it no longer defined her. The storm had led her to purpose, to a love quiet, steady, and true. Hope, courage, and new beginnings filled the air around them.